Hey there, fellow fans. This is a fan with too much time here, seriously considering changing my name. But that's not the reason I'm here today. Today, I've got another extra talk for you, where I want to talk about a game that seriously touched me, in like, all the wrong fucking ways. It's by no means a new game, but it basically defines my relationship with its franchise to this very day, and the impact it left on me is one I'm still feeling even now. This game I want to talk about is a game called Far Cry 5. So, to give you a brief rundown on what Far Cry basically is, it's a video game series where you engage in some pretty fantastic combat and action gameplay to defeat some sort of tyrannical villain as a one-man savior. Generally, there are good factions, or at least one good faction, that you will work with in order to take over bases and gradually claim back territory, but also, generally speaking, any and all impressive feats performed by these or this single good faction is something your character has done for them. So, what do you do for them? Well, what do you not do for them? Destroy and conquer enemy bases and outposts, attack convoys, save people from whatever their machinations are, help the locals, assassinate VIPs, attack and take down region bosses, and a few other related tasks, all of which advance your faction or hurt the enemy faction, often doing both simultaneously. Leading the enemy faction is a charismatic villain with a gaggle of anime-style captains you must defeat first, who are typically in charge of a region on a pretty massive open-world map. There are a bunch of quests to do, people to help, things to discover, all of which culminate in a final battle. In the case of Far Cry 5, this was done by some religious Heaven's Gate-esque fanatic. So, I'll try to limit my rantiness when it comes to talking about this game, and what it did right and wrong. So first, let me just list and run down what I broadly liked about the game. Far Cry 5 is fun to play mechanically. I really enjoyed all the different things I could do, and awesome moves I could perform, the absolute freedom that I had in combat. I wish we could get other games, both sci-fi and fantasy, that moved more like Far Cry games do, especially this Far Cry game. Far Cry 5 had some incredibly smooth combat, and it just felt very good, very intuitive, was a lot of fun. The voice performances of many of the actors present also were fantastic, and you can really tell that people gave it their all, and I feel that, and I appreciate that. Some of the villains have very interesting gimmicks and dynamics, which I sometimes feel are a bit ham-fisted or underutilized, but are nonetheless better for being there than not being there. Hypnosis, psychedelic drugs, and insane all-American guns are everywhere you look, and they look damn good. There's a lot to love and discover on this map, and again, a lot of the gameplay just feels good. The game also tends to look pretty great, as you can see. All that being said, however, my association with this game is less than great, to say the least. Why, you ask? Well, I suppose it has to come down to the story? Though I also feel that it goes a bit beyond just the narrative that is told. I'll try to use what words I have to encapsulate it, and hopefully by the end you really understand what it is that soured this experience for me. Most people who have played this game already probably already know, or at least can sense, what direction I'm going in here. But for those who have not, understand that there are heavy spoilers incoming, and honestly, in my genuine opinion, you should just let me spoil it for you. The ending of this game is flashy and cinematic and hella dramatic, but it killed my love for this franchise pretty thoroughly, and I've seldom looked back. Still, you've been warned in the event that you do want to preserve this, in my opinion, dumpster fire of a conclusion for yourself. That being said, let's go ahead and go forward. And as we go forward, and as I write this part of my script, I realize that, I think I lied. It doesn't just come down to one factor, it comes down to a few, at least two factors. So I'll quickly cover the less severe, the less plot-relevant one. The game's story is just too long for its gameplay. Don't get me wrong, the gameplay is fun, but the tasks and quests that you are made to perform are, well, extremely repetitive, to the point that you begin to feel like you're getting way too much of a good thing. And like eating too much sugar, you soon start to hate the sweetness you loved because you're forced through it just so damn much. How do you fix this? Do you add more features, more enemy types, more game variety? I have no fucking idea. I'm not a game designer or anything close, but it would help if the story could actually keep up with the gameplay and help carry the burden of the interest that is supposed to be, involved in all that we're doing. And this leads us to those spoilers that I was talking about earlier. So here is where my heart really has to hurt. You see, a game, a piece of media, a story in general can't really hurt you unless it's doing a lot right. At least, typically speaking. For example, I was hurt horrendously by the Rian Johnson Star Wars film because I wanted to see Luke, and I was getting Luke. Because I was giddy by the introduction of something that looked so much like a Star Defender from Legends, and I was getting that craft. And, because Snoke's guards looked so awesome, and I got to see them fight, and I had wanted that. And Kylo Ren could have become great. God damn it! That movie could have been so goddamn good. And if they had at least stuck the freaking landing and kept Kylo Ren evil, and maybe, made the ending of the conflict somewhat indecisive so that there could be an overwhelming Star War to go into, they might have avoided shitting all over. Ahem, sorry about that. Just another reminder of why I can't use that movie as an example for things. God damn it. Canto Bite. Why? In any case, I think you get my point. Whether in the premise or whole swathes of the execution, things that make us really hate them usually have to get into us somehow first, and then ruin themselves after. Perhaps a more apt example might be Game of Thrones. Though Game of Thrones would be like the Godzilla-level final evolution of whatever form this mess is, because Far Cry 5 is not the Game of Thrones of its series. The silent protagonist is a safe but ultimately stale bet that Ubisoft decided to go with for this game, which I found to be a real shame. This change aids in role-playing a little bit, in that you're not tied down to any one distinct personality, good or bad. However, the game lacks choices and implied decisions that would differentiate your character enough to make you feel like you're actually role-playing anyone, or being able to play in any way that is different from any other way that you would play this game. And the end result is just that the character comes out literally being what he is, non-existent, or what she is, non-existent. You can choose your gender in this game, I'm pretty sure. It's a basic choice, and one which ultimately does not help as much as it shirks the responsibility of characterization and being interesting off of the protagonist that you're playing as, and onto the shoulders of basically all the characters around you and that you interact with. And honestly, very few of them are memorable, and very few of them shine. The repetitive nature of the game quickly begins to sap away the novel feeling of being saved by a particular character, as you will be, periodically kidnapped by the game's bosses, and you will need saving by your allies. From these allies, I think I remember the badass gun in the Bible Black Priest Jerome, who got the first turn at saving my life in the game, though that's determined basically on what region you go into first and what you decide to do first. You can change the order of things around, you just can't change what happens. There was also a guy with a family and an airplane, and there was a really tragic, underused girl with scars and a bow. A chick who owns a bar with some guns, I think. I mean, I remember the cheeseburger bear and the cute dog and the giant murder cat, but at this point, my recollection of interesting characters begins to sort of dissolve, at least when it comes to the friendlies in the game. Now, when speaking about the villains, it becomes sort of a tricky subject. There are 3 bosses and 1 final boss, and each control a region of the map except for the final boss, who you can only really unlock after beating all the other ones. And like I said before, they control these regions, and each of these regions have filled with forces of the main enemy that are at least slightly different or augmented according to which of the bosses is in control of the region you're in. Though the differences are really slight, I'm having trouble remembering them. I think that maybe the military guy had more snipers or more actual military-style forces, and I have no idea what the TV preacher had that was different, but I definitely remember the drugged-up psychos that the white dress bitch had going for her. So all of these various, psychos are... they're led by the bosses, and you have to beat the bosses before you can face the big bad. It's a very basic sort of thing that I think Far Cry has been doing for a while. And all of these bad guys, the ones that have a name, really, they talk to you over the radio a whole lot as you start to dismantle them and take them down. So what do I think of them? Well, the TV preacher is probably the most personally interesting out of the bunch, maybe? Their personalities are not boring, but they waver in consistency, sometimes acting like cartoon villains.
That freedom from sin can come from the power of just one word. Yes! Yes. I am a sinner. Yes. I wish to be unburdened. Yes. I must be redeemed. If you're watching this, know that you have been selected. You will be cleansed. You will confess your sins, and you will be offered atonement. Don't worry. You don't have to do anything. We'll come for you. Welcome to Eden's Gate.
And then sometimes acting like realized and complex characters.
My parents were the first ones to teach me about the power of yes. One night they took me into the kitchen and they threw me on the ground, and I experienced pain after pain after pain after pain. And when I didn't think I could take any more, I did. Something broke free inside. I wasn't scared, I was clear. I looked up at them. I started to laugh. All I could say was, yes.
But the lack of consistency greatly lessens the impact of either one. You could say the real star of the show is the man at the top. And while that's technically true, it's also not as pronounced as people like to think or give credit for. Joseph Seed, I think that's his name. I mean, there's like a John Seed and a Jacob Seed, and I get the names mixed up. Lots of J's and a lot of Seeds here. But I think his name was Joseph Seed, is this crazy cult leader at the center of it all. constantly spouting pseudo-biblical nonsense, declaring the end is nigh, and trying to, at the cost of everything, even his own organization, he's trying to convert you to his cause by breaking you, basically. Even as you burn his entire operation down around him. And his motivations aren't very clear. It's not very clear why he's doing the things he's doing, why he believes them so strongly, what he's feeling, what he's sensing, and why those things compel him to be the way he is. But he's also not as, he's not mysterious enough or creepy enough like the Joker is in The Dark Knight to make that work for him. Instead, it just feels a little empty. I'm just gonna come out and say it. This guy is a shell. A fascinating, creepy, charismatic shell, but a shell nonetheless. And one which contains far less in the space it takes up. There is, nothing behind his religious opinion or jargon. No real doctrine or philosophy to tear into or play with, or to debate and consider. And you might say, oh, you're asking too much of fictional villains, come on. I'm not asking a whole lot. The Sith have their whole evil philosophy, the rule of two, and the Sith teachings and the Sith way. And while most people probably would not avow that, and certainly wouldn't follow it, it does clearly explain why some people may follow it, why it might be their motivation, or why it might ride alongside a motivation. This ideology, the religion of Eden's Gate, the Project at Eden's Gate, there really is no such thought given to the Project at Eden's Gate. Jacob Seed has managed to round up a bunch of followers and convince them that 1, the world is ending, 2, he's the only one who can save them, and 3, that God, whatever form God is taking here, speaks directly through him. The reasons why anyone who has not been tortured or drugged senseless into believing this would choose to believe this are never made very apparent. The guy is kind of charismatic, but I never get a sense for the mythology of his cult or understanding of anything that's really driving them. It's all extremely unclear to a level that is frankly quite disturbing. Well, not disturbing, disturbing from a writer's perspective. I am disturbed by the fact that they didn't decide to put anything behind this when they were going to center so much of their characters around it. Normally a tyrant is doing things for his own sake, and he may have an ideology he uses to justify that, but that becomes less important if he's really about himself. You don't get that sense with Jacob or Joseph or whatever his J name is. You do get the sense that Joseph buys into his ideology 100%. You also get the sense that there's nothing behind that, which just is dissonant. It doesn't make him feel better or worse. Rather, it makes him feel unreal. It pulls me out of the narrative, which is why I don't like that. He's too focused on that, and there's nothing really there. The guy is charismatic, but he's preaching empty air. Everything revolves around this guy, and this guy revolves around his religion, and only his religion. And his religion is basically, I know the world is ending, so do and believe everything I say. And everything else is just whatever inane thing he is saying after that, but it doesn't link together. If it was all really if this whole game was really sitting on Seed's shoulders, this game would have hit a public flatline harder than Far Cry Vengeance did. No, I don't think so. Seed may be the star of his own show, but his show is held up entirely by his support dancers and roadies. No, not the mini-bosses that come before him. Mini-bosses as much as they are, right? They're really just full-fledged bosses. No, it's not them. They don't hold it up. It is the minions under them that hold up this entire show. They're the real character stars of this Far Cry. The thing that this game really gets right are the Peggies. Peggy is a derogatory word for the people who follow the Project at Eden's Gate. It's derived from an acronym there. And they make up the vast bulk of the foes you will be facing in the game. acting out the orders of their mindless cult and their leaders. These Peggies, they have no morals, no code, and are bound only by the dictates of the Seed family and their, sudden whims, whatever those crazy whims might be. And here, the lack of order and creed actually becomes a boon, because where it leaves the Seed family with precious little substance, as they traipse about and pretend their cult has anything real to say, the foremost victims of their mindlessness, the Peggies themselves, fully embrace the madness instead of dancing around it. The Seed family act like they're deluded psychos buying into some BS ideology that doesn't really exist. But the Peggies under them aren't just deluded, they are completely, brutally, and violently insane. They are an army the Joker would be proud to general. And as I said, that comes from them being victims of their own system. The Peggies live in squalor. They're clearly starved, beaten, drugged, and maimed until they are driven utterly mad. And then that madness is channeled into devotion, which is rewarded and, incentivized into this really toxic loop. And then once they show enough devotion, enough faith, and absolute one-minded love for this crazy cult, they're rewarded with power and authority that they use to then do to others what was basically done onto them. And it's this abusive cycle that quickly becomes, the most apparent, compelling factor that you witness when playing the game. Because you see them do these various things to people as they induct them. They almost drown them in this mock baptism with water that is heavily contaminated with this horrible drug called bliss, a powerful psychedelic that is just heaps unethical to force into people. And you see them physically torturing and beating people until they disassociate from reality. And the realization that most of the people you are fighting and killing are victims of this process, the process that has been, breaking people and remaking them into monsters, it drives almost all of the narrative tension in this story. You see, most of the side quest content that you can choose to be a part of but don't have to be a part of involves rescuing people from the Peggies. Lots of the time, it takes the form of people being tied up and held at gunpoint, usually in their own place of business or at their houses, often while being beaten as the Peggies raid their homes and take their supplies, which of course are very, very limited because the Peggies have cut off this entire county from the rest of the nation and all of its supply lines. But sometimes it takes a more subtly disturbing form. These Peggies might kill these people, they might take them, or they might leave them alone so they can raid them later on. But you'll sometimes see Peggies in white vans driving busloads of people who have been kidnapped towards their bases for essentially indoctrination. And you come upon bases full of cages that have people in them. And honestly, these were the most compelling moments of the game for me. I can't tell you how many times I would be driving down the road towards an objective, even in the late game when the mechanics of this whole thing were nearing maximum grindage, and I would groan as I saw a white van pass me in the opposite direction on the road. I groaned because, try as I might, I usually could not let them just go. I groaned because I knew I would spin my dumb car around and chase that stupid van down so that I could open the back of the van and let the people inside out. And I felt I had to because of how extreme and totally fucked up the Peggies were to their prisoners, and what it took for them to be satisfied. Rape, brutal, disfiguring torture, crippling, maiming, cannibalism, the destruction of minds through hypnosis, shame, pain, and drugs, the collapsing of entire personalities into ravenous monsters or cowering slaves. Just the thought that my character might not prevent that from happening for even A single person delayed my goddamn playthrough more than you can imagine, and I found myself working tirelessly to put some cushion between the remaining normal people and the crazy sadists seeking to demon-style torture them into insanity. Even my drive to save my teammates was not driven by the villainous nature of the bosses who had them, but rather by the knowledge of what would be happening to them every moment that I delayed rescuing them. I mean it, the Peggies and their insanity and brutality drove the narrative tension of this game for me much more than any speech or action given by the game's villainous darling, Mr. Seed. Everything may be done under his direction and with his blessing, but in this case, the hand is far more interesting than the head that orders it. The Peggies, and more specifically what was done to them, and what they in turn do to others, is the greatest tension this game provides, and I really mean that. Seriously, because whenever you save any of the game's NPCs from them, there's sometimes some pretty stilted dialogue that gives you the impression that they're not even people, or have no idea what they just narrowly avoided. In short, I rarely do it out of the sense that the saved NPCs give me, but more out of the knowledge of what I would be allowing to happen, even conceptually. Because they were so bad, I felt proud each time I defeated them, and felt good each time I put down one of their deluded family members. By every metric, the Peggies were irredeemably evil and needed to be stopped, even before they could be helped. Stopping them was good. Stopping them was right. Except that, apparently, it wasn't. You are not right. Seed was right.
It means I was right.
So, at the end of the game, you have your final showdown with the King Cunt himself, and after getting over all of his tricks, dismantling his entire cult and destroying virtually everything he has ever built, you have him dead to rights. And then the game decides to subvert expectations! Nukes fire, the world begins to burn, all your friends die in a car crash, and you are barely conscious as you are hauled out of the crash by Seed, who then takes you into a bunker, kills another of your friends, and chains you to the floor. No shit, the game ends with him staring deeply into your eyes, you left helpless and powerless before a monster you've rightly defeated. With the literal apocalypse happening outside, you are assured nothing can intervene as this man, who has already proven capable of doing anything, is left to do everything to your character for an indeterminate period of time. What the fuck? Okay. So, correct me if I'm wrong here, but was that all not pretty, shit? Not only are you defeated despite winning and locked in a room with Rapey McRapeface for what may be a lifetime, but you are made wrong in this entire situation. Because of you, less people lived through the apocalypse. I thought I was saving people, but in truth, I was just doing them to nuclear hellfire. My friends, the victims of the Peggies themselves, all led into death by my own hand. Ubisoft, what the ever-loving fuck is wrong with you? Who on earth thought this was a good idea? And they really wonder why people didn't come back for the follow-up game. It's like when Star Wars wonders why people didn't come back for Solo after they had just finished watching Rian Johnson's Star Wars. I mean, with a dumpster fire of an ending like that? And listen, sometimes melancholy or bad endings can be worth it, meaningful even. But what the hell is meaningful about this? Why on earth would you create a situation where these people are in the right? Why force us down a narrative path that only lessens the eventual victory of an irredeemable and deranged villain? Doesn't prevent it, only lessens it. He still wins. I mean, why punish the player for playing your game? Honestly, it's pretty fucking disgusting, and it left me feeling pretty fucking disgusted. I mean, look, you see this?
If we just confess. If we confess right away, we'll be okay, right?
No. You'll make it worse.
Why?
Because confession without pain isn't confession. You'll scream out your sin, then you'll wear it on your flesh before John peels it off you. It's a beautiful thing.
These guys were the correct guys. Listen, listen, listen. You hear this?
No! No! Don't leave me here! Please don't kill me. Please. I'm sorry.
He said I was weak.
Please.
That I deserved it.
Please. I'm so sorry.
Maybe he was right.
No!
Maybe.
No!
I deserved it.
Don't leave me here!
Maybe I did.
Please don't kill me. Please.
Maybe I did.
I did! Maybe I did!
If I had let that keep happening, more humans would have survived the nuclear hellfire. You see this asshole right here?
Another seal has been opened. My family, my brothers, my sisters, they've been taken from me by a snake in the garden.
He is, actually, no shit, the savior of humanity, or something damn close. Ahem. So, I have a question. Why the fuck did you do that? What is the message here? What is the takeaway? Because if the takeaway is, oh, sometimes shitty shit happens and the bad guys are right, then all I have to say is, thank you, but I kinda already learned that lesson every day in real fucking life. This is literally supposed to be my escape from that. Please do not make my escape from real life a personification of why I want to escape from real life. Or, you know, at least have that written into your theme or stated somewhere on the fucking tin. I mean, did they have to make the Peggies so goddamn evil? They didn't have to make them do all of this. They didn't have to put us so close to it, give us no choice but to see how horrible they were. I mean, if Seed is touched by God or psychic or privy to government knowledge, why the hell does he have to be a category 6 psychopath? Why does he order so much inhumanity? And again, what is the point of making him correct at the direct expense of the player? I don't get it. After this ending, I felt directly betrayed, like the game developers had spit in my eye. All the things I'd worked to save were gone. The insane villains were vindicated, their actions all but justified by the virtue of being correct about the core of their belief, which is simply that the world is ending and Seed can get them through it. And he very well may have, had it not been for me. It's like making a game where someone releases a disease that turns all Jewish people into mega zombies, and then narratively the whole story kind of shrugs and says, maybe you should have let Hitler kill off an entire race of people, then they wouldn't be zombies. That story sucks. That contrivance, while shocking, is profoundly unimpressive. The message is morally worthless, totally empty, just like the ideology the Peggies don't fucking have. And it is this which makes it the same kind of fuck up as the Game of Thrones fuck-up. The ending retroactively cheapens and weakens the entire experience that came before it. It makes you, metaphorically resent God, in that to play and enjoy the game after knowing what will happen and what you'll be rewarded with for going through it, it makes you resent the game developers for having chosen to make the game like this. And they really wonder, they have the balls to ask why people didn't come back for the follow-up game. I mean, really? Really? Smaller map, shitty leveling system, and on top of all of that, this total ridiculous place to lead up from, to leave off from. Like, you thought you were creating a cliffhanger with that last ending. You weren't creating a cliffhanger, you were creating a shit ending. A totally shit ending. And this is all of my hardcore criticism without even going into the fact that this game had, and still has to my understanding, microtransactions. Microtransactions in a single player game. Oh, fucking great. Like, it's just what we fucking need, right? Without even going into that, forgiving all of that, the game slaps you so hard for the sake of shock value at the very end, and ruins itself just so they can go, oh, didn't see that coming! It's profoundly shameless. It's really unskilled. It's not anything anyone should, strive for when it comes to the after effect or narrative result of a story they're trying to tell. I mean, I felt so spited by the game creators, and therefore so spiteful in return, that I have not looked in on Far Cry, and I haven't even looked in its direction since I finished that game. And I doubt that I will again, unless really good word of mouth gets around back to me. But you know what? Enough ranting and raving. This right here more or less sums up the entire aspect of why I cannot stand Far Cry 5, and why, in spite of, or you know what, perhaps even because of the things it does right, I just cannot recommend it to anyone looking back on the series. It could have been so much, but unlike other games which fail their potential, this game took it a step further, or maybe even a step further back, and it became something it simply shouldn't have been. At least, in my opinion. But do tell me your opinion in the comments below. You guys know I read them, when I can, at least. I've been really busy as of late, busy enough to consider changing my name, right? But before I go, let me part ways with an update. Work continues to progress strongly on the last few episodes, though my time is not as too much as it used to be. I may put some other stories up in the meantime, but they will be the ones I have, basically already completed and just need to voice and video out. I will continue to focus my limited writing time on the main Star Wars vs. 40k series until the completion of Season 1. So I'm hoping that rhymes well with you guys. Now, insofar as current events are concerned, because I've seen at least 2 comments where I'm asked about the current events of politics and stuff. Yes, I am aware of what has been happening in Afghanistan. No, I am not happy about it, at all. But that's really all I want to say about it. This channel is not a political channel, and it's not meant that I should mention every big thing that happens in politics. I will point things out when they impair our ability to vote and to be free citizens of a free nation, and I will point out some extremely toxic trends that I believe need to be, examined, at least when they're really helping fuel, fire under a platform that is super, super heinous. In this case, I, of course, mean the cult of personality under the big orange. But I'm not here to talk about every dumb old man thing that Biden does. If you've watched my previous videos on the subject, you should know that I did not vote for Biden. I voted against Donald Trump, and I'll do so again and again, because I'll vote for a doddering old man before I kneel to any fucking king. Especially a naked one. And so I'll put that down right there, and speak no more of it. On more entertaining news, the Dune movie is soon coming out, and from the looks of it, it's going to be the next big fucking hit in sci-fi. All I've got to say about it is this: it is your duty as scions of the God Emperor to go and see this movie and to judge if it's worthy of his grace. Seriously, this film could very well represent one of the biggest steps forward towards a real, serious, live-action Warhammer adaptation. I mean, the aesthetics, much of the style, the kind of sci-fi that will be present in large portions here, it's all basically incarnating in some form in this movie. And if they can pull it off, then it may be heralded, as the next big step in sci-fi. It may herald a new day for us in the Warhammer fanbase. Hell, loath as I am to say it, it may well, if it is good enough, become the sword that slays Star Wars as it kneels in its weakened state, or it may just become a new titan to rise among it. One can only hope. But soon we'll be able to do more than hope. We'll be able to watch and judge for ourselves, and I encourage you to do that when the time comes. More updates and videos are coming up, so do feed the algorithm demons and subscribe if you haven't for more talks, tales, and time wasted with a fan who should be doing other things, but likes doing this instead. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and until the next one, I'll see you later.